it's Dr. Denny over at Fort Posset Fulsher Veterinary Clinic, and today Jordan and I are going to be talking a little bit about fleas and ticks and kind of the risk factors that they bring and how they affect your pet's life and health.
Dr. Denny, what diseases are associated with fleas and ticks?
So fleas and ticks are blood-sucking parasites, and I'm not meaning that as a comment against them. They actually are blood-sucking parasites. So that means that they land on the pet, they attach and take a small blood meal. And with fleas, if there are enough of them, they can actually cause flea bite anemia. So that's where these pets or these patients, they don't have enough red blood cells because the fleas have taken it from them. Like I have had cases where it's like an 8-week-old puppy or 5-week-old puppy and they come in covered in fleas and they have to have a blood transfusion because the fleas have taken everything from them. And they can die from that. If you don't have enough red blood cells, you can't get oxygen and nutrients to your organs, and so you can die from that. So it's super important to know. Now, as far as ticks go, they're also blood-sucking parasites. So they latch on, and once they latch on, if they have diseases, i.e. like Lyme disease, they can very quickly transmit that disease to your pet, and then we're dealing with a whole host of other problems.
What health problems can fleas and ticks cause?
So I think that's a great question. We kind of chatted a little bit about it before, so we're going to touch on it again. So with fleas, it can cause flea bite anemia. So it can mean where your doggy, your cat, doesn't have enough red blood cells. They can cause allergies. There's a massive allergic response that comes when the flea takes a blood meal from the flea's saliva. So even just a couple bites from a few fleas could be enough to kick off an allergic reaction throughout your whole pet, which is important to know. Also, fleas carry tapeworms. So tapeworms are a type of intestinal parasite, and they steal nutrients from the pet. And the only way they can get a tapeworm is by eating a live flea. Now, ticks, on the other hand, they can cause anemia if there's enough of them, 100%. They can also cause infection at the site of the bite. But even more importantly, they carry tick-borne diseases, and some of those tick-borne diseases are transmissible to humans. So I always say by protecting your pet and making sure they're on flea and tick prevention, you're actually protecting your family as well. And this is going to be even more important if you have small children, because we all know that our babies or our younger kids, like they don't always understand what they're putting in their mouth or what they're touching. And if your pet has these external parasites, then you're exposing your child.
Can my indoor-only cat get fleas and ticks?
100%. Yes, they can. And I love this question because it's such a misnomer that you think that, okay, if we're just inside, if the cat never goes outside, then we won't be exposed to fleas, and that's just not the case. So I know here in Fulsher, Texas, we have fleas year-round. Houston, Texas in general has fleas year-round. But if you just take a walk outside, and if the fleas are attracted to body heat, they might jump on your pant leg or on your shoe, and you bring that inside, and they're going to look for the warmest furry thing. And if that's your cat, there it is, and that's how your cats can get fleas. So we really do strongly recommend flea prevention year-round, especially down here in the South. So if you do have an indoor-only animal, it is still really important to keep them on flea prevention.
How common are fleas and ticks in cats?
So a great thing about cats is they're very fastidious groomers. What that means is they groom all the time. So if you have a cat, or if you're thinking about getting a cat, they spend a huge portion of their lives grooming. They like to be clean. Now this does work to our advantage and to our disadvantage. So it works to our advantage because most of the cats will groom the fleas or ticks off of themselves. Works to our disadvantage because number one, we're usually not going to see them until there's a big problem, or until we see tapeworms, or until we find out that our cat has a tick-borne disease, because the cats clean the tick off before we've had a chance to know that it's there. That's another reason why annual lab screening is so important, and why we do so much preventative medicine here, is that we don't always get a warning sign. Like dogs aren't as fastidious cleaners. So with our cats, we don't get that, oh, look, I visually see that there's this bug on my cat. On dogs, we're usually like, oh, there is a bug on my dog, and we can act accordingly. We don't get that from our cats.
Where would my cat get fleas and ticks at?
So they can go everywhere on a cat's body. I would say that the most common areas that you can see them or that they can show signs is they can get itchy around the base of their tails. A good place to look for them is sometimes on the thinner hair on the belly, and they do seem to like the head a lot. So particularly if you have a kitten and you're giving it a bath, or if you've just found an orphan kitten and you're giving it a bath, they will swarm up to the head and the ears. So those are good places to find them, and just be aware that they are really tiny. So if you have a long-haired cat, which I have 2 of them, it's going to be really hard for me to see the fleas because they are super small, and long hair and even short hair cat, that's thick hair, you know, and you're not going to, and they're fast too. Fleas are fast. You don't think they're going to be fast, but they're fast. So you might think you saw something and you go look and then it's gone and you don't know what you saw. But the way to make sure that this doesn't happen is you keep your pet on flea and tick prevention year round.
Is a short hair cat more susceptible to getting fleas?
No. If you have fur, you can have fleas. We're lucky that fleas don't actually really like humans, so we're not preferred. They don't like to bite us. They will if they don't have a choice. But anything with fur can have fleas and or ticks because that's where they hide, and that's what they grab onto, and that's where they lay their eggs. So it doesn't matter. Long hair, short hair, Sphynx, doesn't matter. I will say that I don't think I've ever seen the Sphynx with fleas, but it doesn't mean that you can't have them. It just means that my Sphynx owners, because there is nowhere for them to hide, my Sphynx owners are usually very on top of the ball, like, oh my gosh, what is that? That's not supposed to be there. And we get them on flea and tick prevention, and it takes care of the problem.
Can my cat still get fleas and ticks in the winter?
So here in Texas, we have fleas and ticks year round. If it was up in like Alaska where they have a hard freeze for a big majority part of the year, yes, you know, fleas up there will probably like die off. The populations shrink down, but here in Texas, we have them all year round. They don't go away. It doesn't matter if we had like the Arctic blast where it was 3 days of really awful frigid cold. It doesn't matter. They didn't go anywhere. It wasn't long enough to kill them. So we have fleas and ticks here year round. So we really do strongly recommend year round flea and tick prevention for our patients.
And finally, Dr. Denny, what factors can increase my cat's risk of getting fleas and ticks?
So if you have an indoor cat and you also have dogs, having dogs going in and out to go to the bathroom is putting them at risk, because the flea doesn't just go right on the dog and take an immediate blood meal. They can just hitch a ride, and so can ticks. Or if your husband is a hunter and goes out hunting in the brush, and comes back, that can still be bringing this into the house, exposing your cat. So that's a risk factor. Cats that obviously are indoor, outdoor, that going outside, that's a huge risk, because hey, that's where we find these things, is outside, right? If you live in a highly endemic wildlife area, so Fulshire is quickly growing, right? But we still have a lot of rural areas. We still have a lot of farmland out here, and we have a lot of wildlife. So that serves as a reservoir for the fleas and the ticks. So they're here, you know. So I would say risk factor is you're alive. If you're alive, there's a risk. It's kind of like I drive a car, right? So that's a risk factor because I'm driving a car. Anything could happen to me in the car. So simply the act of being alive is a risk factor, because that's what these bugs, they drink their blood. So that's a big part of how I would describe what their risk factors are. So I hope this helped answer some questions that you might have. If you do think that you found fleas or ticks on your animal, please call and make an appointment. Especially with ticks, you really do have to be careful removing them. If you don't get them all, if you leave the head behind, you can get a nasty infection. And also there's definitely some things we would need to do if you know or see that your pet has fleas or ticks. So if you have questions, please give us a call and make an appointment. Thanks, guys.